Part 1, Perfectionism, a hidden form of inner instability. What is perfectionism, and why does it deceive us with a mask of virtue? At first glance, perfectionism may appear noble. It speaks the language of high standards, accountability, and excellence. But beneath the surface, it often stems from something far less admirable: fear, shame, and a distorted craving for control. Perfectionism is not about striving for excellence. It's about an obsession with flawlessness. It's the belief that unless everything is exactly right, you are not good enough. It's the illusion that your worth hinges on your performance. More than anything, perfectionism is the desperate attempt to avoid discomfort: the discomfort of failure, the discomfort of judgment, the discomfort of being ordinary. That's why it seduces us. It makes us feel powerful, responsible, diligent, even moral. But in truth, it often enslaves us to anxiety, burnout, and paralysis. It hides behind the mask of doing your best, but in reality, it's a form of internal unrest, a refusal to accept reality as it is, a subtle rebellion against imperfection, uncertainty, and human limitation. Epictetus, suffering arises from wanting what is not under your control. This Stoic principle cuts straight through the heart of perfectionism. The perfectionist obsesses over outcomes. They measure worth by results, success, recognition. They tie their identity to how things turn out, things they ultimately cannot fully control. And when the result falls short, as it often will, they suffer. This is not merely a philosophical error, it is a spiritual one. Epictetus teaches us that the key to inner peace is for focusing only on what is truly within our control: our actions, our intentions, our moral choices. But the perfectionist violates this law of nature. They reach beyond their rightful sphere of influence. They seek to command the uncontrollable: outcomes, opinions, timing, perfection. It's like trying to sail a ship by steering the wind. This is why perfectionism leads to burnout, stress, disappointment, and self-hate. It's a game rigged for failure. True strength lies not in demanding flawlessness, but in accepting imperfection with clarity and calm. It lies in doing your best without needing to be the best. It lies in acting with integrity and letting go of the rest. The Stoic response to perfectionism. Stoicism is not a philosophy of passivity. It does not excuse laziness or indifference. It calls you to live with excellence, but defines excellence not as flawlessness, but as fidelity to reason, virtue, and reality. Marcus Aurelius did not seek to be perfect. He sought to be honest, just, and composed. Seneca did not demand absolute mastery. He asked simply for daily progress in wisdom and self-restraint. Epictetus did not aim to control the world, only himself. That is the difference. The perfectionist says, I must win, I must succeed, I must be exceptional. The Stoic says, I must act rightly, no matter the result. Let go of the illusion of control. To live as a Stoic is to renounce false control, to let go of the exhausting need to polish every flaw, predict every outcome, and perfect every detail. Instead, you act with care and accept what comes. You prepare thoroughly and release the need for perfection. You pursue excellence, but do not worship it. That is true freedom: to strive without clinging, to care without being consumed, to live fully without demanding flawlessly. And in doing so, you don't become less responsible, you become more powerful. Because real power is not in perfection, it's in composure. And composure comes not from controlling everything, but from knowing what not to control. Part 2, Stoicism and the Foundation of Reason. Reason is the core of Stoic virtue. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Reason is what makes us human. Live in accordance with it." To the Stoics, the highest virtue is not brilliance, charisma, perfection, or success. It is reason. Not reason as cold logic, but as the capacity for moral clarity, rational judgment, and inner coherence. Stoicism begins with one central belief: that a human being is not defined by what he possesses or how others view him, but by his ability to think rightly and act accordingly. This is why in Stoic ethics, virtue is the only true good. And virtue is nothing more than living in harmony with reason. To live well, then, is not to live perfectly, it is to live rightly. That means acting with discernment, aligning behavior with nature, and making choices not out of fear or impulse, but from rational understanding. Excellence is not in results, it is in the integrity of your reasoning. This is a radically liberating standard because, unlike perfection, reason is always within your reach. Perfectionism is irrational. It's born of unchecked emotion. At its core, perfectionism is not a rational pursuit, it's an emotional reaction. It often emerges from fear of failure, anxiety about judgment, shame of inadequacy, all powerful but irrational drivers. When these emotions go unchecked, they lead to a perfectionist loop. Fear triggers the need for control. Control demands flawlessness. Flaws provoke more fear, which deepens paralysis. This is not reason at work, it is emotional slavery. And the Stoics would call it exactly that, servitude to passion. According to Stoicism, a wise person is one who is free, not because they dominate others, but because they do not allow emotions to dominate them. To live under the tyranny of "I must not fail" is to live in chains. Perfectionism feels virtuous, but it is fundamentally reactive, not rational. It responds to internal fear, not external truth. It is not careful, it is compulsive. Seneca, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Perfectionism often creates its own suffering, not because reality is cruel, but because the mind creates unrealistic expectations. Seneca's insight cuts through this illusion. We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The perfectionist isn't wounded by reality, they're tormented by the image of how things should be, an imagined ideal, a flawless standard no human ever truly lives up to. This is why perfectionism is inherently irrational. It worships an illusion, it replaces what is with what must be, and this disconnect between reality and expectation is the true source of suffering. The Stoic response? To see things as they are, no better, no worse. To judge according to truth, not emotion. To act with clarity, not compulsion. Perfectionism violates the first law of Stoicism: know and obey nature. Nature is not perfect, it is dynamic, imperfect, and unpredictable, and yet it functions with harmony and purpose. To demand flawlessness in a world of change is to fight against reality itself. To the Stoics, this is not a noble ambition, it is a form of arrogance. It is not reason, it is rebellion against nature, and the cost of that rebellion is your peace. So what is the Stoic alternative? Don't demand perfection, seek alignment with reason. Don't strive to never fail, strive to act rightly, even when you fail. Don't suppress your emotions, understand and guide them. Perfectionism craves external validation. Reason seeks internal coherence. And in that coherence, in that disciplined clarity, the Stoic finds something far more powerful than flawlessness. Freedom. Part 3. Perfectionism denies the natural order of all things. Marcus Aurelius, nature takes its time, and nothing is perfect at once. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds us, no great thing is created suddenly. Nature does not hurry, and nothing is perfect right away. This simple truth reveals the fundamental error of perfectionism. It expects what nature never promises: immediacy, flawlessness, and control. Stoicism, on the other hand, teaches harmony with nature, not war against it. And nature, by its very nature, is slow, imperfect, and ever-changing. There is no flower that blooms without time, no tree that grows straight without the shaping force of seasons, no person who reaches virtue without first stumbling through flaws and failures. To expect perfection instantly is to reject the nature of growth. It is to insist that life conform to your timeline, your vision, your preferences. And Marcus would argue that insistence is delusion. Perfectionism wants a static ideal, but Stoicism understands life is dynamic, evolving, and always in process. What looks like imperfection is often just unfolding. What seems like failure may simply be transition. Nothing in nature is flawless, yet everything fulfills its purpose in time. Therefore, to live wisely is not to perfect everything, it is to trust the rhythm of nature and move with it rather than against it. Perfectionism is a form of neurotic control, something the Stoics reject. Epictetus was blunt in his wisdom. He who seeks to control the world is already enslaved. This is the hidden truth perfectionists must confront. Their pursuit of flawlessness is often a mask for fear, a fear of uncertainty, a fear of disorder, a fear of being judged. And so they attempt to control outcomes, environments, even people, all in the name of excellence. But beneath it lies the desperate need to prevent anything from going wrong. This mindset violates a core Stoic principle, differentiating between what is and isn't in our control. The perfectionist collapses this boundary. They treat everything, from external circumstances to inner emotions, as if they must be mastered. But the Stoics teach a radically different approach. They tell us you cannot control outcomes, only your actions. You cannot guarantee approval, only your integrity. You cannot force order upon the world, only upon your own mind. Perfectionism is not mastery, it's obsession. It is an addiction to control that ends in frustration because the world refuses to obey. To the Stoics, this is not strength, it is spiritual slavery. The wise person doesn't need everything to be perfect. They need only to respond to imperfection with calm, clarity, and courage. The Stoic accepts impermanence. The perfectionist fears it. If Stoicism is the philosophy of harmony with nature, then perfectionism is the fantasy of escaping it. To be a perfectionist is to secretly wish the world would stop changing, that nothing would decay, falter, or fall apart. But the Stoic sees that change is not the enemy, it is the essence of life. Seasons shift, bodies age, ideas evolve, situations unravel and reform. And the art of living well lies not in resisting these truths, but in accepting them with grace. Epictetus might say, "You weren't born to build a flawless world, you were born to live wisely in an imperfect one." So let go of the illusion that you can fix everything. Let go of the exhausting chase for the flawless. Instead, embrace what is unfolding, not what should have been. Act where you have power and release what you don't. Choose inner order over outer perfection. Because in the end, perfectionism isolates you from life as it is, while Stoicism returns you to life as it unfolds. One path demands control, the other cultivates wisdom, and only one leads to peace. Part 4, Perfectionism and the Ego, the root of inner turmoil. Seneca, there is nothing worse than living in fear of judgment. Perfectionism at its core is not about excellence, it's about fear. A fear of being judged, misunderstood, rejected, or seen as lacking. And while it may appear noble, I just want to do my best, it often conceals a deeper anxiety, the terror of not being enough, either in the eyes of others or in one's own harsh self-assessment. Seneca warned us of this trap. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. It is not the opinion of others that hurts us, it is our interpretation of it. The perfectionist, in essence, becomes a prisoner to imagined criticisms. They live in constant anticipation of disapproval, rehearsing failure before it happens, editing themselves before they even begin. But this isn't virtue, it's self-imposed bondage. You cannot live freely while you're still performing for an invisible jury. You cannot act with courage while you're still chained to the fear of looking foolish. True Stoic strength is to be unmoved by unearned judgment, to act not for applause or approval, but because your inner compass says it's right. And in that space, where the ego releases its need to be seen a certain way, freedom begins. Marcus Aurelius. Do not live as though you had 1,000 years. Don't delay reason. Perfectionism doesn't just exhaust, it paralyzes. In its endless pursuit of the ideal moment, it defers life itself. I'll start when I'm ready. I'll act when it's perfect. I'll speak when I'm certain I won't be wrong. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Don't waste what remains of your life in hesitation or fear. Act now with reason. The perfectionist, in waiting for certainty, ends up living a half-life. They overthink, overprepare, over-edit, and underact. And while they delay in fear of imperfection, life doesn't wait. Time keeps passing. Opportunities vanish, and regret, that silent predator, grows stronger. To live by Stoic principles is to understand. It is better to act imperfectly from integrity than to never act at all. Because wisdom is not born from flawless execution, but from the courage to show up again and again with presence and principle. Perfectionism is pride in disguise, a false humility. At first glance, the statement, "I'm not good enough to begin yet," may sound humble, but look closer, and you'll often find concealed arrogance. Why? Because beneath that hesitation is the assumption, I should be able to get it right the first time. I must never make a mistake. I must control all variables and predict all outcomes. That isn't humility. That's ego in its most polished form, the belief that you are somehow above the normal messiness of being human. True humility says, I am learning. I will likely falter. And that's okay, because growth begins where perfection ends. The Stoic doesn't wait to be perfect. They commit to acting justly, regardless of the result. They do not overestimate their power, nor do they pretend to control what lies beyond their reach. They know failure is part of the path. Judgment from others is inevitable. The only thing truly within their command is their own intention and effort. Perfectionism, then, is not only unproductive, it is spiritually self-centered. It keeps the spotlight on you. It traps you in a narrative of how do I look instead of what is right. To escape this trap is to let go of needing to be impressive and to begin choosing what is honest, courageous, and sufficiently good for today. And in doing so, you finally begin to live. Part 5. The Stoic does not seek perfection, they seek rightness. Epictetus, don't ask if it's perfect, ask if it's right. In a world obsessed with optimization, perfection, and top performance, Stoicism offers a sharp and liberating contrast. It doesn't ask, is this the best? It asks, is this the right thing to do right now within my present circumstances? That subtle shift in framing is powerful, because perfectionism demands a flawless outcome, a result often dependent on countless factors outside our control. But Stoicism, grounded in realism and integrity, shifts the focus to intention and moral clarity. Epictetus taught, you are not disturbed by things, but by your opinion of things. And among those opinions, one of the most dangerous is, if it isn't perfect, it's not worth doing. That idea destroys action. It breeds delay, insecurity, and self-rejection. But when we reframe success not as flawless execution, but as acting with reason and virtue in the moment, we regain agency. We free ourselves from the tyranny of imagined standards. The Stoic does not demand control over the outcome. They take full responsibility for the rightness of their response. Not perfection, not applause, just alignment with what's just and wise in this moment. That is not lowering the bar, it is shifting it to what actually matters. Seneca, no one learns reason who has not first made mistakes. Perfectionism fears mistakes. It sees error as evidence of unworthiness, as proof that you don't measure up. But for the Stoic, mistakes are not shameful. They are indispensable. Seneca affirms this truth. No one becomes wise without first being foolish. No one reaches virtue without stumbling. Why? Because reason is not inherited. It is forged. And it is forged in the fires of failure, reflection, and honest correction. The perfectionist sees missteps as failures to be avoided. The Stoic sees them as signals, messages that guide refinement of character. And that's the fundamental difference. Where the perfectionist asks, how do I avoid looking wrong? The Stoic asks, what can I learn from this to become more virtuous? This orientation toward learning rather than performing builds resilience. It replaces shame with responsibility. It turns failure from something to be feared into something to be used. Just as muscles grow not by avoiding strain, but by engaging it wisely, so too does moral clarity grow by meeting difficulty with discernment, not avoidance. In Stoicism, the goal is not flawlessness, but consistently choosing what is just, courageous, and wise, even after we falter. That's the path of inner strength. Not a staircase to some imagined perfect version of you, but a steady return, again and again, to the right action, here, now, with what is available. So let go of the question, was it perfect? Ask instead, was it aligned with virtue? And know this, the person who makes thoughtful mistakes grows faster than the one who hesitates in fear, because courage and reflection are better teachers than hesitation and critique ever could be. Part 6. Conclusion. The Stoic doesn't pursue perfection, they seek freedom from its tyranny. Perfectionism is a mental shackle, not a moral ideal. Perfectionism disguises itself as high standards, but beneath its polished surface lies anxiety, self-doubt, and an obsession with image. It keeps you trapped in the future, constantly projecting failure, fearing judgment, and measuring yourself against illusions. The pursuit of perfection is not noble. It is not a virtue. It is a distraction from what matters. Stoicism rejects this. It teaches us to come back to the present moment, the only moment we ever truly own. In this moment, the Stoic asks not, will this be flawless, but rather, is this the right thing to do here and now in accordance with reason? That question liberates, because it shifts your attention from abstract outcomes to the concrete task of living rightly. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Let go of the illusion of total control. Let go of the fantasy of perfect timing, and come back to the practice of doing the next right thing, clearly and without hesitation. The Stoic mindset, calm about results, disciplined about conduct. Perfectionism binds your peace to things you cannot control, how others respond, how events unfold, whether outcomes meet unrealistic standards. This is the essence of mental slavery. The Stoic cuts that chain. They know the outcome is never guaranteed, but the integrity of your action is always within reach. You don't control if you'll win or lose, be praised or criticized, succeed or stumble, but you do control whether you act with courage, whether you speak the truth, whether you uphold justice. And that, Epictetus reminds us, is enough. This is not passivity, it is moral seriousness. The Stoic does not shrug off their duty. They simply don't obsess over results they never fully owned. Instead, they pour their energy into the character of the deed, not for applause, not for perfection, but because it is right. This focus breeds a different kind of excellence, one rooted in consistency, not control. To live with reason is to abandon perfectionism, and that is true freedom. True freedom is not the ability to do everything perfectly. It is the ability to act without being ruled by fear, especially the fear of failure. Perfectionism says, don't act unless you're certain it will be flawless. Stoicism says, act rightly, even if it's messy. Reflect, adjust, keep going. In that shift, you reclaim your agency. You stop being a hostage of outcomes. You become an agent of reason, grounded, present, and unshaken. When you let go of the fantasy that you must always perform at your best, you unlock your actual best, which isn't about outcomes, but about presence, clarity, and moral courage. To the Stoic, a life of reason isn't a life without challenge. It's a life where challenge no longer defines you. You walk forward anyway. You speak clearly anyway. You do the right thing anyway, because that is what it means to be fully human. Perfectionism aims at being untouchable. Stoicism aims at being honest, brave, and free. And in that difference lies the path to the deepest kind of peace. Not the peace of having everything under control, but the peace of no longer needing to.